All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Thank you all. We hope you'll all be with us for our big meetup. It's our holiday meetup. I'm wearing my Happy Non-Denominational Holidays shirt, which I got off our merch site, getmarkmerch.com. And it's just one of the many items you can... Thank you. Thank you, everybody. It was just a little something I picked up. Getmarkmerch.com. But the people are having fun with it. Again, as I always have mentioned to you before, we don't really make any money on the merch, but it's kind of a fun thing. And you can find all the different merch with the Chit Chit Chit. There's a Chit 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 mug. There's a Chit 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 t-shirt coming. Yeah. And Kim is with us. Speaking of Chit Chit Chit.
Kim, how are you?
She's always keeping us honest. I love that. And there it is, the Get Mark merch site. So I hadn't planned to particularly push it, but we do have the Happy Non-Denominational Holidays shirts in all of those holiday colors. I love them. Yeah. The green, the red, the blue. It's all there, my friends. And you can rep the show in one way or another. So Tony's here also today.
Thanks, Tony.
We've got a big show with a lot of people stopping through today in addition to our regulars. We love our John Rothmann, and he has a lot to chew on today. So we will get to him bottom of this hour. I also will welcome Lisa Joyner. She has a new podcast that is hot. It deals with Nazis and the war machine of Adolf Hitler and a family discovery that is quite impressive. Impressive in scope, disturbing also in scope. So that as well. I will tell you that in addition to that, we think, although I'm still waiting to hear from Kim, whether we'll have Belinda Waymouth or not.
Sending her an email right now to find out.
Kim, who works tirelessly on this show, when you don't see her, she is the news person and sort of the person who contributes on an ongoing basis to the show when we're on the air. But what you don't see is the degree to which she contributes when we're off the air, when we're preparing the show. Yes, at all hours of the night. In fact, I learned only minutes ago. It was 4 a.m. when she was contributing to the rundown of things we were going to do.
Why are you yelling?
Because it's so impressive. She is tireless in her support. Now, there is a lot going on here, and I will mention there is some breaking news out of New York City. I will get to that. There's also breaking news. We're already in a trade war, and Donald Trump isn't even president yet, but just his smack-talking of China has left us in an extremely troublesome situation, and I'd suggest has boosted the adversarial relationship we've had with China to another level. So I'll get to that as well. Meantime, Pete Hegseth is circling the drain, and it looks as though Hegseth won't get all the way to the DOD head, running the Pentagon and that huge organization, as details of his life filled with what is essentially one big ongoing drunken harassment festival, as that becomes more a part of the regular daily dose of American news. We talked about this last night. We talked about it yesterday. We talked about it the day before, that at some point the stink around some of these nominees gets to the point that Trump just doesn't want that stink on him anymore. Now, there's a part of Trump, I'd say, that doesn't care about the stink and maybe even revels in the stink. But the key here is that he wasn't going to get the votes. So whatever stink you have a tolerance for, Donald Trump, you're not going to get the votes because more and more senators were saying, we're not going to back Pete Hegseth. There are just too many disturbing revelations coming to not to mention, he's manifestly incompetent. I mean, there's no way that he could run the Pentagon. It's an utterly absurd nomination, but that's not really even part of the conversation. It's just that, as I say, he's a train wreck from a personal standpoint. Kim, sorry.
I read that there's already a move to replace Hegseth with DeSantis.
Yeah, Ron DeSantis is being talked about. So DeSantis in the 3D chess of politics might be taking a move back, a step back if he were to take that job, but he may take it, for any number of reasons. But again, we'll get to some of that Hexit stuff a little bit later. I also wanted to talk to Rothmann about all of these things. John Rothmann will join us bottom of the hour, and one of the things I will really focus on is the call that has become somewhat persistent in certain circles for Joe Biden to now follow his pardon of Hunter Biden with a pardon of Donald Trump, which, again, I'll run it out for you a little bit later this half hour, has both positives and negatives. Now, you may look at that and say, what are you kidding me? It's ridiculous. It's all negative. There are no positives. So we'll talk about it a little bit later in this half hour. So welcome to the show. Smash the chit, and smash the like button like a boss.
With your iron rod.
And again, I'll just mention something that is happening, and I hope it'll be a fun time. We're looking forward to a holiday meetup. And the holiday meetup is going to be sort of like other meetups. It has a quality of, what would you call it, conviviality and camaraderie.
Sure. Good cheer.
Yeah, and it'll be, in addition to those qualities, it'll have that holiday quality. So it's the Mark Thompson Show holiday meetup. It's Saturday, December 21st. We have put it at a time that we hope will be convenient for you, particularly on the East Coast. If there are any East Coasters, it'll be 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific. You sign up at our PayPal with a $50 donation to lock up a spot. And then when you sign up at PayPal, and because there are PayPal links under all our videos and there are PayPal links on our website, themarkthompsonshow.com. But anyway, under all our videos, just click through to PayPal and make the $50 donation and note meetup so that we know that's, and in fact, RSVP after that at mtsmeetup@gmail.com. mtsmeetup@gmail.com. Can I bring my iron rod is what Mr. Rubes Vidaloka is asking. And of course, you can and should bring your iron rod. In fact, I will bring Jello shots, is what True Tech is saying. Yeah, it's going to be pretty special. We'll ask Rothmann if he will join as well. But I'm looking forward to seeing everybody there. And we have limited spots available, so I hope everybody can make it. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
There was a disturbing story out of New York City this morning, and I just want to spend a second on it because it extends, this story does, to things way beyond this story in New York City. And what I'm talking about is the assassination, essentially, of the CEO of a major healthcare corporation. And this was a targeted hit. It was apparently a gunman clad in black. He used a silencer weapon, they think, or a weapon with a silencer. And I believe it's a sign of something else, and it's a disturbing something else that may very well represent a new era in America that we haven't really been party to. Here are, that we haven't seen in a while. Those are the CCTV images that we were just showing you. And Tony, I think you have a quick package from CNN at the time. Again, this UnitedHealthcare CEO fatally shot outside of this Manhattan hotel. He was going there for a meeting, and the gunman apparently waited for him to arrive, fired multiple times, I think hit him in the leg initially, and his gun jammed. He unjammed it and then killed him and fled on his bicycle. But go ahead. Tony's got a little bit of piece from CNN.
Get out of the way so we can zoom in on the crime scene so you can see all these investigators on the scene here at the Hilton Hotel in the heart of Manhattan. Now, I punctuated the fact that they right now believe it was a targeted attack. One thing I actually noticed as I was getting here to the scene, now Hilton Hotel here in Manhattan It covers like a half of an avenue of New York City. That's a lot of real estate. There is actually multiple entrances to the hotel. So it's very clear that this suspect, who police are still looking for, knew which entrance that Thompson was going to enter at about 6:45 this morning. That, of course, is probably something investigators already knew and are looking into. But what we know from police is that about that time, at the height of rush hour, at the height of tourist season here in the middle of the city, police believe that this gunman stood outside that hotel entrance for about 10 minutes or so, according to sources, was wearing a mask when Thompson was arriving at this hotel for a conference that was expected to happen in the ballroom. We're told by sources telling our John Miller that gunman fired from about 20 feet away, several shots, hitting Thompson, and then fled, actually ran down a back alley and onto a bicycle, sources telling me, that then took off toward the area of Central Park. Now, you can imagine right now at this stage of the investigation, investigators are pulling video from areas all around here, trying to piece together exactly who this person is. Obviously, it's hindered by the fact that they believe he was wearing some sort of a mask, but also where that person went. So this is obviously very early in the investigation. A lot of questions to still answer, including the fact, what is the motive here? Why did this person, what they believe targeted Thompson at this time? So still a lot of questions. We hope to get more answers.
Good
when
stuff.
police
Thank
pull the
you,
news-
Tony. Again, he was named CEO in April of 2021, UnitedHealthcare, huge company. They do sick revenue and sick profit. And this brings me to my point, which is there is a sadness to this and a tragedy to this. This Brian Thompson doesn't deserve to lose his life or even be involved in anything, an act of wanton violence like this. I hope they catch the culprit, the Lady Beatrice says. It was targeted. I want to know if his or her motive had anything to do with our broken health insurance system. And thank you for mentioning that, Lady Beatrice, because this is my point. America stands alone in that you will bankrupt yourself with healthcare costs. America stands alone in our refusal to help Americans with healthcare. The Obamacare Affordable Care Act that was instituted did help people with pre-existing conditions, et cetera. There are other aspects to it that are helpful as well, removing certain caps that would limit the amount of insurance that you could get for in certain circumstances, health circumstances. But the only way that he could get that done, Obama, was to bring the insurance companies in. And when you have insurance companies as part of the conversation, you are, by definition, going to have a limited positive effect on this broken system. You all know, I know, that it is so easy to run into the red when you're trying to cover healthcare costs in America. It is excruciating the way you have to consider, do we want to have this money to pay for this procedure, or do we want to have money to keep a roof over our heads? Mm-hmm. And so as the oligarchs have taken control of America, in my judgment, the richest people in the world, some of them, are in control of America. The incoming president, himself a billionaire, surrounding himself and populating his administration with other billionaires, many of whom are self-made, you could say, but many of whom are self-made / exploited a system that exploits those who have nothing. I would suggest that this kind of thing that we've seen in New York is an outgrowth of that. Now, we know nothing about this person who shot and killed this Brian Thompson, the CEO of UnitedHealthcare. So it's possible that it's something else. But I'd suggest that what is going to be percolating, what's going to be circulating in America over the next 4 years is a realization. And the realization is the richest people have taken control of this system. The richest people are exploiting a system that they already benefit from hugely. And these richest people are going to exploit it further. And the withering effects of that will, I believe, lead to more incidents like this. And lastly, I'll say, this isn't just my opinion. It's also the opinion of Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon feels if you give billionaires a break on taxes, as is the plan, that the people will rise up at some point, and you will have a French Revolution-style pushback on the palace guard. Now, Steve Bannon, who is a toxic, awful creature in the world of American political history, he is talking about maintaining power and how you maintain power. You throw crumbs to those who are essentially to the electorate, to the populace, to the hoi polloi, right? You throw them crumbs and you keep yourself in power. But if you give yourself a tax break, you're not only not throwing them crumbs, but you're showcasing, in effect, in a high-profile way, the fact that you continue to exploit the system and control of the system. So even Bannon realizes that there's something to lose. But what I would say is this is a sign of a disturbing time in America. Sorry to say it, but United Health Group is viewed as the bad guys, as part of the problem, as the reason that they kick back your charge for an MRI, the reason that there is a $2,100 cap on some diagnostic procedure that costs $9,000. I mean, there's an obscene quality to the way insurance companies push back on us, force us into a system where we have to pay out of pocket, and we resent it. And on some level, again, that resentment, that rage builds in America, and it's a dangerous thing. And I, again, view this as a horrible tragedy. And this guy, Brian Thompson, is just adjacent, if you will, to this entire thing. He's a cog in the machine, admittedly a well-paid cog. But his parent company, United Health Group, is viewed as evil, is viewed as those who push back on legitimate charges that we all are burdened with when it comes to healthcare in America. So that's the word on that as we start the show this morning. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
there was also word from China. China's already into it with Donald Trump. You know, Trump wants to put those tariffs on. Can't wait to get those tariffs going. He's a big tariff guy. He can pull those tariffs out of his holster faster than any other tariff puller and any other holster holder in all of America. And Donald Trump wants to impose those tariffs on China. And he's talking about Mexico. I may throw you a tariff. He's handing out tariffs like Oprah used to hand out those cars.
New cars, yeah. Even Canada.
So China is saying now, this just in, we are going to ban the export of several rare minerals to the United States in an escalation of this tech battle between the world's two biggest powers.
And these are minerals used for chip making, computer
Thank
chip
you.
making. Yeah.
And the move, frankly, again, you could put it, as I sort of have, at the feet of Donald Trump for smack-talking the Chinese. But the Biden administration, they're the ones who tightened access to American technology a bit when it comes to China. They are really willing to engage in supply chain warfare by blocking the export of these components that are used to make valuable products, like, as Kim said, technologies, chip-related technologies, weaponry, semiconductors. So gallium, germanium, antimony, the super hard materials to the United States would be halted immediately on the grounds that they have dual military and civilian uses. And China's Ministry of Commerce is saying The export of graphite would also be subject to stricter review. China is central to so many global supply chains, and they're saying, hey, guys, you want to get it on? Let's get it on. This is a real tough spot that the incoming president will have to deal with already. Jim Shields says, inflation, you ain't seen nothing yet until Trump institutes tariffs and deports the people who harvest and process food and clean buildings, etc. Yeah. The days of quiet headlines seem to be going away. Meantime, there is more and more talk about a possible pardon for Donald Trump. Could Joe Biden find a pardon for a guy who has been loathsome and unrelenting in criticism of his son, of his family, the Biden crime family, etc.? Well, more and more people are calling for that, and they're hanging that call on different things. Among those calling for it, Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin, there are others in sort of the Democratic ecosphere, if you want to think of it that way, you know, maybe not formally legislators, but in that world, who are also calling for it. But then there are, and this is all contributing to the buzz, right? It's all here is Manchin talking about it. Go ahead, Tony.
As a father, I don't know of a father that wouldn't have done the same thing. What I would have done differently, and my recommendation as a counselor would have been, why don't you go ahead and pardon Donald Trump for all his charges and make it, you know, it had gone down a lot more balanced, if you will. I'm just saying, wipe them out.
What do you think this does for his legacy?
I don't know. From that standpoint, it makes it difficult.
No.
By the way, I didn't know until that video clip that we just showed how tall Joe Manchin is. It's quite extraordinary. The other pardon call is coming from what you might consider a strange place. I sort of do. But nonetheless, it is something that we told you would happen some time ago. We said that Stephen A. Smith is now going to be something of a political pundit. He's entering into this world of political punditry, and you can evaluate what he says based on the merits. But take a look at Stephen A. Smith talking to, is it Cuomo? Yeah. He's on with Cuomo talking about this idea that Joe Biden should pardon Donald Trump. And it's first introduced by Cuomo himself. Go ahead.
What else Biden should do? And I know people are going to get upset about this, but just think about it before you go crazy on me. Not you, sure. Everybody else. If I were he, I would pardon Trump.
You know something? Honestly,
I would say,
as crazy as this sounds, Chris, that's exactly what I would do. That's exactly what I would do. Enough's enough. You know what? You're the Democrats. You lost the election. You got your butt whipped. You couldn't prevent him from going back to the White House. More than a dozen cases have been dropped against him. The cases that have been ruled against him, he's going to appeal, and he'll probably get off from having to deal with all of that. It's time to move forward. You want to get at Trump, sit back and judge what he does. Guess what? You got a midterm election in 2 years. Are you going to be ready if you're the Democratic Party? You should be. You know, he's going to be the presidency for 4 years. You're going to be able to judge every single act that he does. March forward, move forward. You know, Gerald Ford could have let Nixon suffer. You know to say he didn't let that happen. Why? Because it was for the good of the country. The whole hanging chads issue in 2000 between George W. Bush and Al Gore. Gore could have dragged it on. He didn't. It was for the better of the country. And a lot of times these folks speak about this stuff, but they don't do what they say they're going to do and what they implore others to do, which is where the disgust elevates exponentially for Washington, D.C., because we know they're full of it most of the time.
Okay,
and today
thank
was
you. I get it. Listen, sorry, but that he's detailing all the failures of the Democratic Party to hold the system to account. So he's detailing Gerald Ford, who let Nixon off the hook with his pardon, and he then mentions Al Gore having conceded the election. That was yet another situation in which you should have held their feet to the fire on the hanging chads. And by the way, to be fair, they did. It was the Supreme Court that stepped in. Rothmann can speak to this. He knows a little something about it. Then we're going to talk to him about it. But I don't see this as a particularly compelling argument the way he makes it. I mean, we should sit back and evaluate this new president, and then we should, take it to the ballot box. Dude, I don't need to sit back and evaluate a guy who engineered a coup on the United States. It seems to me as though it's a day's drive to get to a pardon. I can make the argument and understand the argument about a pardon, but let me just see what this. Noe Marie says, Biden criticized for using the procedure that by definition is above the law, and then thereafter asked to utilize that procedure again. Fine, but go dark Biden and pardon MSNBC, CNN, Mark Thompson, etc. Yeah, this is true. I mean, if this guy who you want to sort of sit back and give him a pardon and just sit back and evaluate how he does, if you feel as though that guy you should just sit back on, if you feel as though he will not be recriminatory and vengeful still, I think you're being naive. He has stated he is going after his political enemies, and he doesn't even have to state it. His nominee for FBI head, he has said he's going to go after people civilly. He's going to go after people from every direction legally to essentially hold them to account if they are in any way, I mean, this is the implication anyway, in any way critical of Trump. And so there is no comparison between Nixon and Trump. I would agree with that, but I think there is a question about whether Nixon should have been pardoned. And I'm not going to have that. We can talk to John Rothmann served with Richard Nixon. We can ask him. But Trump engineered a coup on the United States of America. He jacked thousands of classified documents and took them to Mar-a-Lago, put them in the bathroom, ballroom, bedroom, closet, etc., waved them around at various social events.
Tried to steal the voice of the American people with the fake electors, tried to steal an election. That's a lot more than stealing a couple documents out of an office building.
And so he is part of I think, a dark, very dark part of American history that we've never really seen before. I mean, the coup attempt that he got underway was involved the legal system. It involved phoning up these fake electors. It involved ultimately a violent riot at the Capitol. So, sorry, I think there's a lot there. It may be just more that you can chew. Now, I'd also like to ask John Rothmann, and I will in a moment, about the pardon system. Should it exist at all? I mean, should there be limits on it? I mean, it's limitless. I mean, again, another way in which this chief executive, who is supposed to be something other than a king, he's supposed to have checks on him. It is, unfortunately, always a him. These checks seem to be melting away. So increasingly, and I think the pardon thing is not anything new. It's just one more instance in which the president can do whatever he wants.
And did we ever decide as a country, the Supreme Court, I don't think they decided on immunity while you're in office, but never decided on whether or not a president can pardon himself or herself.
Yeah, I mean, it continues to be a controversial question. So
it was interesting. Gordon had a comment about whether a pardon for Trump would be good for the country. Right. I mean, you can make the argument that put the whole issue to bed. Trump can never be, for anything that happened, he can never, all the legal cases are over. There's no question. We move forward, clean slate. Is that good for the country, or does it show the country you can get away with anything?
Yeah, I mean, what's good for the country is something that I don't have a feeling for. I mean, I think what's happening in America right now is not good for the country. So I don't know exactly. I'll leave it to better minds in our chat to decide what's good for the country. But I don't know whether the average American would be generally benefited by the pardoning of Donald Trump. I do think that Trump and his minions, from Bannon to Vivek Ramaswamy to Elon Musk to any number, this rogues gallery of people that he has waiting to come in, from Tulsi Gabbard to Kash Patel, who's going to run the FBI. I mean, these are absolute jihadists. They are loyalists, and they will pursue anyone who they perceive to be an enemy of Donald Trump's. Most of all, Patel. I think he's really going to take the FBI to the darkest place. It'll make the J. Edgar Hoover administration at the FBI look like a kid's birthday party. This is coming in late. Where is the equivalence between Hunter Biden and Trump? Yeah, exactly. It's not necessarily equivalent, but the question is, again, being asked, should he be pardoned? The Hunter Biden pardon was thorough. It was complete. It was as sweeping as anything we've seen in generations. It's clemency and essentially insulates his son from ever facing federal charges over any crimes that he possibly could have committed over the past decade. I told you it was the other day the golden ticket of pardons. And indeed, they could think of only one other person, experts who are asked on pardons, could think of only one other person who's received a presidential pardon so sweeping as the one that Hunter got. It was, anyone? Nixon. Nixon got a blanket pardon from Ford in 1974. So again, even the broadest Trump pardons were specific as to what was being pardoned. So the full and unconditional pardon of Joe Biden's son is deliberately vague so as to cloak him in that pardon moving forward. I'm sorry, trying to keep up with the heck no, don't pardon him. He has SCOTUS in his pocket. It's not good for the country. He's committed crimes against the U.S. and Americans, says Mays. Yeah. All right, we'll talk to Rothmann about it. But this will be an ongoing question and conversation, I think, in the days ahead. I have to get to John Rothmann. I have other stuff, but I have to get to John Rothmann. And I do want to mention, coming up, I have, in addition to
The Mark Thompson Show.
Coming up, in addition to John Rothmann, my friends, I have the COVID report. The COVID report. And I will remind you what we said on this show when people were being demonetized and run out of town, and on KGO it was being laughed at. I said, I'll sit down and take a meeting on the lab leak. I will, because I think that there could be something to it. Mm-hmm. And the COVID report done by the House of Representatives now appears to point increasingly to that. But that's something that we're going to get to, again, a little bit later. Right now,
The Mark Thompson Show.
He is the Grand Poobah. Yes, he's the sage. Our colleague from KGO Radio, he himself now with a daily podcast around the political world with John Rothmann. He is an author, a lecturer, and a presidential historian. Put it together for John Rothmann, everybody. So, sir, thank you for being here as always, and I will just lead with this question we were kicking around. There are increasing calls from Joe Manchin, from the world of punditry and others, for Joe Biden to follow up his sweeping pardon of Hunter Biden with a pardon of Donald Trump. Thoughts?
First of all, let's go back to Richard Nixon. The deal that Gerald Ford made with Richard Nixon was negotiated by an attorney named Benton Becker, who I had the opportunity to interview on several occasions. Nixon had to essentially admit his guilt. He was pardoned for all crimes he may have committed between January 20th, 1969, Inauguration Day, and August 9th, 1974. It was very clear, very precise. And Nixon had to write or sign a letter, Benton actually wrote the letter, conceding that he had violated the trust of the people. In the case of Hunter Biden, it was clear, and you can read Joe Biden's statement, his son did those things. There was no denial of that. His reasoning was that if he didn't pardon his son, Donald Trump would go after him, which is exactly what Donald Trump has said, and you referred to earlier, the Biden crime family. Let me also suggest to you that a pardon requires some, in my judgment, some contrition, some admission of guilt. There will be no admission of guilt by Donald Trump, and therefore the pardon makes no sense. Let the record be clear. Donald Trump did terrible things. He may have won an election, but it doesn't obviate what he did.
So now to the Trump world as it seems to be unfolding from the standpoint of nominees and Trump positioning his administration to take over America.
Not positioning, he is.
Well, he's not in power yet. That's why I say
he will be
positioning.
January 20th.
That's right. So, but that's why I say positioning. Please don't challenge me this early in our conversation.
I love challenging.
How dare
Go
you?
ahead.
I mean, do you know
who I am?
Exactly.
I'm kind of a big deal.
Thank you very much. You could back off a second. All right. Now, what I wanted to get to is first, Matt Gaetz was nominated. Matt Gaetz, the heat got too hot, and he's out of the kitchen. Pete Hegseth nominated, the heat getting a little too hot. It looks like he may jump out of the kitchen, with Ron DeSantis maybe on deck.
Ron DeSanctimonious?
Ron DeSanctimonious. How things are. Well, I mean, the world of Donald Trump is populated, it seems, with a lot of these people who called him every name in the book. His vice president called him Hitler in waiting, essentially, right? Didn't J.D. Vance say that?
That is what Vance said.
Yes.
And, of course, let's not forget Little Marco, who is now...
Little Marco, and Ted Cruz's dad was involved in the JFK assassination, and Ted Cruz's wife is ugly, and then before you know it, Ted Cruz is working a phone bank for Donald Trump. So these guys have no bottom, and they continue to be the utter sycophants when it comes to the loyalty and now fealty to Trump. So now... let me get to some of these other nominations. So DeSanctimonious, as you put it, or as Trump has put it in the past, he's positioned for DOD. I wonder if you can speak to, A, maybe give me a thought on him, but B, what I feel is sort of oddly, and it's hard to pick, maybe the darkest of his nominations, and that's Kash Patel at FBI.
Yeah, I agree. You don't have to listen to what we say about Kash Patel. There are a number of clips of his words. And believe me, it's astounding. One of my favorite books in the library that I have is a book called The Kennedy Government. It was written right after Kennedy was inaugurated, listing all his cabinet officials and the issues around them. It was a stunningly important book because it highlighted really who they were. If you really look into someone like Kash Patel, director of the FBI, I had a huge argument with a very good friend and his son when I suggested before the election that Donald Trump, if elected, would have a revenge list, what Nixon called his enemies list. And I was poo-pooed. I was told, oh, no, you're wrong. It's just politics. I'm not wrong. This is going to be a fascinating moment. And whether or not Donald Trump can succeed depends on Republican senators. If 4 Republican senators just say no, many of these nominations will die. The question is whether the Republicans will have the backbone to do that. Now, let me be clear about my own position. I believe a president should be able to surround him or herself with people that they trust and like. That's what you do. You build a cabinet, you build a group of advisors. But I have never seen, and we have never seen in American political history, an attempt to bring people in who are, frankly, so disreputable on so many levels. So I say that not as a partisan. If Kamala Harris had won the election and were doing this kind of thing, I would be just as outraged. So that's my answer to you.
Well, to me, it's not even partisans as much as it is. It's clearly a big dose of that, but the utter incompetence associated with some of these nominees vis-a-vis what their positions would be, it's crazy. I mean, that you could even
point out too, Director Wray still has time on his term. It's a 10-year
It's a 10-year term. That's right.
And the president has the right to fire an FBI director with or without cause. And Donald Trump has made clear that he's going to fire Wray and nominate Kash Patel. Well, he may have certain prerogatives, but the Republicans in the Senate should have a conscience, should have a sense of who they are. Unfortunately, I believe they are afraid of Donald Trump and afraid of the very thing that he's doing, retribution.
Well, that's exactly right. I would agree with that. In fact, I'd say the time that they could have voted and not necessarily been as fearful as they probably should legitimately be now is when there was an impeachment trial. I mean, my God, you had a chance to flush this guy and you didn't take it. And now
you understand why. You should play, if I may be so bold as to suggest, Mitch McConnell, who voted against the impeachment on the grounds that it would all be taken care of by the courts when the appropriate time came. Well, where is Mitch McConnell today? Where is his statement? Where is his leadership? And he is the Republican leader, at least until January.
Well, that was just a way to avoid voting for impeachment.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, so you're looking when you're looking at these guys who are gutless, and they showed they're gutless, and now you can't say, I hope that they sort of find God somehow now when it comes to nominees. I mean, they couldn't find God with a guy who was being tried for overthrowing the government. Are you kidding?
But it has to do with votes now. This is not rhetoric. This is a moment when they will have to either vote for or against, advise and consent, which is the function of the Senate. Look, the proposed head of the DEA just quit that nomination because he knew he was in trouble. And there is no doubt in my mind that these issues are going to compound. I think about this very rationally. What do you think leaders around the world are thinking? Because this is not The Apprentice. This is not random people who you can fire. What is the job of a cabinet officer? It is to run a department. It's not like the old days when the cabinet sat around and theoretically advised the president. They don't even have regular cabinet meetings anymore. There used to be regular cabinet meetings. Now what you have are individuals put in charge of departments and told, manage those departments, manage them. Can you imagine, Kash Patel as head of the FBI? I mean, it's inconceivable. And frankly, to have...
Well, you better start conceiving of it, because a few GOP senators are maybe talking about, behind closed doors, about Kash Patel in ways that would suggest that they might vote against a confirmation. But even centrist Susan Collins, who openly expressed doubts about Matt Gaetz, said that she is open to learning more about Kash Patel and has to learn more about his background.
You know what stuns me? You know what stuns me? Listen to what he says. I don't care about his background in this context. I care about his words.
Well,
he's talking about weaponizing the Justice Department.
There again, I refer you back to what we were just talking about. This isn't really learning about anything. She knows who Kash Patel is. You don't have to. She's patronizing us with this BS. This is her quote. I don't know Kash Patel. I had heard his name, but I don't know his background, and I'm going to have to do a lot of work before reaching a decision on him. In general, I found it's important to review the background check, the committee work, and
if there's a
background
hearing. Check.
Right. That's
if there's a background check. Let me just quickly throw this out. I know we have a limited time. The idea of a war against the FBI, of eliminating background checks on appointments, of saying, we'll have a private company do the investigation is absurd. and there's really no way around it.
Yeah. Again, Trump can only lose 3 Republicans in the Senate, and then, he no longer can get that nominee through. But Kash Patel may get through. I mean, he was a senior staffer for Nunes, right? And he tried to discredit the Russia investigation. That was kind of his thing. The backbeat of most of what he was doing was associated with that. And he's promised to purge the FBI of people that he sees as unloyal to Donald Trump.
That's
and
enough.
He's indicated that he would seek a near total revamp of the FBI.
He wants to turn the FBI building into a museum.
That's right.
This is absolute. If these statements had been made by these individuals 1 month ago, the day before the election, I think the outcome might have been different. But then again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Trump conclusion that this is what the American people want, or at least those who voted for Donald Trump want, is the reality. And if it is, it's a very disturbing reality for this country. Remember, I cited a book called The Plot That Failed. Richard Nixon intended in an unwatergated second term to do essentially what Donald Trump is doing. And the question is whether or not Republicans, because it's not the Democrats, it's the Republicans, as you just pointed out, 4 or 5 senators just stand up and say no. But it's very disturbing.
A number of GOP senators saying that they thought Patel could be confirmed. Soon-to-be Senate GOP whip John Barrasso from Wyoming said the president ought to have who he wants serving in his administration. Tom Tillis, senator from North Carolina, said that he plans on meeting with Patel this week and is in a presumptive positive position over the nomination right now. I do think he will be able to get confirmed, he said. And so said Joni Ernst from Iowa, who'd expressed reservations about Pete Hegseth, but does feel as though Patel will get through.
If he does, we will see a completely new approach to what the FBI is and what it does. And don't listen to me. Listen to Kash Patel. Listen to what he is saying he will do. And let me point out, that is the reason Donald Trump has put him there. Frankly, it'll make J. Edgar Hoover look like a saint.
Trump's transition has now greenlit FBI background checks for incoming staff. The long-awaited DOJ agreement with the transition team means the FBI can begin conducting background checks into Trump's cabinet picks. Now, I have to say something, and that is that there were background checks done on the Kushners. There were background checks done, when I say Kushners, I'm talking about Ivanka and Jared. And there were background checks done on the Trump kids, Eric and Don Jr., and they all failed those background. Those are just some of the people who failed the background checks. They were compromised either in terms of debt that was maybe held with the foreign governments. And there are a number of different ways that you can fail these background checks. So for top secret security clearance, John, as you know, you need to clear these background checks. The government came in the form of Donald Trump and bigfooted it and said, no, I don't care what the background checks indicate. I want them to get top secret security clearance, and they got it. I mean, it's likely that Donald Trump himself would fail an FBI background check. Isn't that right?
Yes. And look, please, Donald Trump has nominated or will nominate for ambassador to France Jared Kushner's father, who is a convicted felon who Donald Trump pardoned. I mean, this is, I must say, I lose sleep over it because I'm very disturbed about what's happening. And if you keep this recording of this broadcast, I would suggest if you play it again in 6 months or a year, it'll be something that people will look back on and either will be right or wrong. But I dread the fact that we'll probably be right.
The question comes from the audience, finally, as we finish up with our brother John Rothmann. Mark, please ask John his opinion about the ceasefire with Hezbollah and what it says about Iran's strength. That's from Brian. Can you speak to that, please?
Yes, there is no ceasefire. The war continues, and it's not with Lebanon, although you have to understand, you got to differentiate. Lebanon as a country, which I would remind you, it doesn't have a president because they can't agree on a president. And Hezbollah, which operates independently within Lebanon. I think it is a travesty. This so-called truce is not a truce. I talked to friends in northern Israel today. Believe me, there is no truce. The question also becomes, if I may be so bold, with Donald Trump, who says there'll be hell to pay if Hamas doesn't release all the hostages when he's president or before he's president. I applaud him for that, but I don't know what he means. I don't know what he's going to do or how he's going to do it. And you also raised earlier the question of tariffs. Let me quickly point out a president has to go to Congress in terms of tariffs. And if you start a trade war, we don't have time to go into Smoot-Hawley, which was the high tariff that was imposed during the Hoover administration. Nobody remembers. First thing the Democrats did was to rescind Smoot-Hawley. We're in a very precarious situation, and we have not even discussed what happened in South Korea, which raises tremendous implications. And by the way,
they might be looking into the future in South Korea. I mean, my God.
Yeah. No one is talking about the fact that Trump is again going to withdraw from the Paris Accords. which
yeah, I mean, I think that's a footnote. Honestly, I mean, this is no contendo says Rothmann, FBI weaponized against Black Lives Matter and other Afro-American African diaspora. I know worse than Hoover. KP Shields 45 against racial targeting FBI. Cash Patel.
Yeah, the FBI has abused power over the years. There's no question about it. Nobody says the FBI is perfect. This is not Ephraim Zimbalist Jr.'s FBI.
No, it's what I said before, though. Cash Patel will turn the FBI, the J. Edgar Hoover administration's FBI will look like a kid's birthday party after Cash Patel gets done with it. John, I love you, and I wish I had more time, but I don't. Please
I'm looking forward to joining you on the 21st.
I love that. On the 21st. Tony, put it up there again, would you please? This is our meetup for the holidays.
And thanks for the plug Around the Political World with John Rothmann. We're having a lot of fun with it. And may I say, I'm just delighted to be on the Mark Thompson program.
Well, thanks, Tony. This is the Mark Thompson Show, Hollywood. Yeah, sure. Yeah, there'll be an aspect of Hollywood there. Yeah, I'm going to bring the glam. I'm bringing the glam. It's the holiday meetup. It is a glamorous affair. John Rothmann has now been our first confirmed guest. Saturday, December 21st, you can be our second confirmed guest. 5 o'clock on the West Coast, 8 o'clock on the East Coast. You sign up at our PayPal with a $50 donation to lock up a spot. And note when you are on PayPal with the $50 donation, meetup. Note meetup, so we know it's for the meetup. And then RSVP and say, hey, I did it. And I'm looking forward to seeing you. mtsmeetup@gmail.com. And I'm excited that Rothmann will be there. You can tell there's a bounce in my step all of a sudden. And there is his podcast, Around the Political World with John Rothmann. John, we adore you. We can't get enough of you. We'll talk next week. Thanks, pal.
Thank you.
Okay, John Rothmann, everybody.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
What up, everybody? Glad you could be with us. It's our Wednesday show. Still so much to do. So much to get to. Lisa Joyner is joining us. She has a new podcast with involves Nazis, and it involves a secret weapon and a discovery on the part of a family. The discovery that their dad was involved in the development of this weapon of death in Nazi Germany. So all of that to come. Thank you for your many connections with the show. That is to say, those who have shared the show. That is how we grow our audience. And through social media postings, when you see something and you share it, it helps us grow the audience, and really do appreciate that. I wanted to, before I get to Lisa, I wanted to try to get to this COVID report. Can I do that real quick? Kim, is there time for me?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So here's the deal on the COVID report. And again, you may seem to be the COVID report. That seems so long ago, COVID. But the House has released the final report, and you can see it there, criticizing the public health response to the pandemic. Now, this is a Republican-led House committee investigating the broad aspects of the COVID-19 pandemic and its effects on the country. And the final report, released this week, summarizes a 2-year effort, and it's supposed to be this roadmap for Congress and the executive branch and the private sector to prepare for and respond to future pandemics. Those are the words from the actual report. It's 520 pages. And they point to characteristics of the virus and illnesses manifested from the virus that they feel push back on any other theory as to the origins of the virus except that which leads to the Wuhan Institute of Virology in fall of 2019. In other words, COVID-19 came from a lab leak. The virus was not genetically engineered, according to most U.S. intelligence agencies, but it's still not totally clear how the pandemic actually started. And a U.S. intelligence analysis released last year said that either a lab leak or a natural origin was possible. And the community of investigators is split on this, right? So the U.S. Department of Energy assessed this situation last year, said that it had low confidence in the lab leak theory. No U.S. federal agency believes that the virus that causes COVID-19 was created as a bioweapon. But the subcommittee report says that if evidence of the virus and its natural origin existed, it would have surfaced by now. Remember the question as to what would be the intermediate vehicle for COVID-19, the animal. Scientists have not found an animal infected with the ancestral virus that sparked the pandemic. It took more than a decade to identify the origin of the first SARS outbreak, and so it may be a while. I mean, the origins of Ebola are still unclear. So when it comes to these investigations, it's really tough. But researchers have continued to accumulate, as noted in the report, years' worth of strong but circumstantial evidence pointing to a natural origin for the pandemic at the seafood wholesale market in Wuhan. But the new report, the subcommittee report, faulted the pandemic efforts of the World Health Organization in trying to get to the bottom of this, saying that it placed the political interests of the Chinese Communist Party ahead of the mission to help people around the world, and even allowed the party to control its investigation into the origins of the virus. We told you that here as well. I think that's true. The World Health Organization was controlled by China, is controlled by China. And you know how they control it? Money. That's how. But as a result, you'll recall, and we spoke of this on the show at the time, that the Wuhan lab and even the wet market was dry cleaned of a lot of the evidence that would have been so very useful to this investigation. China's lack of transparency over the pandemic is noted in the report. The lack of data disclosure is simply inexcusable, said Dr. Maria van Kerkhove. She's the technical lead at the World Health Organization. She wrote an editorial last year, and she was very critical of China. And she says it becomes very hard to understand where this virus emerged initially, and it's made tracking it down almost impossible, the lack of Chinese transparency. So the report is also critical of the mitigation procedures around COVID. You knew that was going to come out of this report, right? It's a Republican report, and so social distancing and mask mandates, not based on hard science, they say, was an issue. And let me be clear, that's not just a purely partisan thing. There are a lot of Democrats who feel that way. So, and I say Republican Democrats, I mean left, right, however you want to parse your and divide your political loyalties. So all of these things, again, contribute to a cloud of doubt, but the idea somehow that, at least when it comes to the origins of COVID, that it was completely natural and emerged in a natural environment, I mean, as natural as a wet market is, that appears to be called into question by this report. They point to the Wuhan lab.
It just doesn't feel definitive, because you have one report that is a bombshell report that comes out that says, oh, it was the wet markets, and the other one says it was the lab, and back and forth. And it seems like every time a new report comes out, it's the other thing. So how do people know which report is the right report to believe?
Yeah, and there's a lot of politics in this too, so it's really, really tough. As I told you at the time, I always felt that there should be a blue ribbon committee assembled, and it should be bipartisan, and there should be a real drill down on what happened with COVID and how it was handled. I mean, this isn't going to be our last pandemic, and the next one could be even more deadly. So the administration, of course, is lauded for Operation Warp Speed. I mean, they really, they play to their audience a bit. But I thought the origins of the report were interesting. So the origins of the virus mentioned in the report were interesting. So that's the latest on that.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It is the holidays, and holidays bring friends into our mix. And I have such a wonderful friendship and relationship with this terrific person who you're about to meet. And she's part of an even more terrific podcast that's getting a lot of attention. It's called The Man Who Calculated Death. And it really chronicles the discovery of a family's history and the relation to the development of a major weapon for Adolf Hitler's Nazi Germany. I mean, imagine that as a family discovering that. It's quite extraordinary indeed. There it is. It is now out, and you can hear this podcast and should check out this podcast. Don't take my word for it. Take the producer of the podcast word for it. She is the wonderful Lisa Joyner. Hi, Lisa.
Of course, I am not at all biased, Mark.
Well, the story seems, I mean, insanely compelling.
It is.
Tell us about it. Yeah.
It's an incredible story because my dear friend and somebody you know, Suzanne Rico, who used to do local news here in Los Angeles, we've been friends for years. And we worked together for a short period of time. But to truncate the story, one night we were out to dinner, and it was me and my husband and her husband. And she was talking about, you know, her family history. And she said, oh yeah, my grandfather apparently had something to do with he was a crazy, super smart scientist, and he worked for Adolf Hitler. And I was like, come again? You don't just drop that, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, we're just going to set that aside. And this was a history she didn't know that much about because her mom had sort of buried it and sort of made it seem like a fairy tale to her, you know, something that was, but she realized that her mom had so much trauma from living through this war. So Suzanne started talking to me about this story, and it really was a compelling story that made you think, gosh, you know, this man is a horrible man. He's a Nazi, you know, how do you, as a person, Suzanne being married, there's Robert Lesser as a woman married to a Jewish man, how do you reconcile this? But then as we peeled back the layers and we dug a little deeper, he kind of had no choice at that point. I mean, what would you have done? What would you do for your family at that time to survive, right? And that was his talent. And he ended up making a weapon of mass destruction that is still used today. So we decided to do a podcast about it, and she went back in time, basically. She and her sister packed up and went to Germany and went and walked in the footsteps of her grandfather, her mother, who was traumatized by all this. And actually, they unearthed the truth about how her grandmother was killed. They never knew this. They never knew what happened. They thought it was retribution for the grandfather's work. And we find out later it was not.
Wow. Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah.
And it's interesting how the family digested this material. They digested this story of the father who was essentially left with no choice but to develop this weapon for Hitler. Yeah. What I'm getting is that they were sort of vaguely aware of it. Is that what you're saying? Or
they were, but as the second generation, as a granddaughter who had never met the grandfather and just only heard these little stories, all they had to go on was, basically what happened is when Suzanne's mom was on her deathbed, she was dying of cancer, her mother said, "Can you do me this one last favor? Can you finish my memoir?" Like, how do you finish a personal memoir, first of all? And then she said, it's about my father and his work with this massive, this secret super weapon for Hitler. And Suzanne went, okay, I'm not really sure how to do this. So she got reliable World War II experts, and she visited the place where the bombing happened, where her grandmother was killed. And she talked to all these people, and she brought along her two tantes, which is German for aunts, who are in their 90s, sharp as a tack, remember every detail, and they become narrators through the story.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
How many episodes is it?
There's 9 episodes now. They are on Wondery Plus. We've just finished dropping them, and then you can get them on Apple and Spotify and everything as well. But The first one will get you in the mood, and you're going to know who this woman was, the mother was, and who Suzanne is, and why this mission is so important. And what I challenge the listener to is, you think you have an idea how you feel about this man. By the end, you may feel completely different.
Oh, that's terrific. It's super intriguing. And I feel as though World War II history is so layered. I feel like the history that I learned was sort of superficial. And then all of these stories within the history of the rise of Nazi Germany and the way the war was prosecuted, these are all things that, are filled in as details with every passing hour almost. And like, this is another one of those massively intriguing stories that I never really would have thought I would trip over. I'm so glad that you've brought it. So there are 9 episodes 100%. Here. Yeah,
100%. And Mark, what's wonderful is that you can't, even if you're like, I don't need a history lesson. Basically what it does is it takes a family's history and shows you what their history has to do with world history. And so you kind of go along on this transformative sort of journey back in time and discover an 80-year-old secret. Why this woman was killed, who did it, who was responsible. And she comes face to face, Suzanne comes face to face with he was a child at the time. Her father was responsible for this child, this 9-year-old, being in a concentration camp and building this weapon. And she has to face him, come face to face with him. And the humanity between these two people, you talk about a divided world that we live in.
Oh, did we just lose her? What happened? We lose her?
It just brings tears to your eyes.
Yeah, and speaking of tears, I'll just finish by saying your work is it's so well done. You're so careful about the things that you decide to do and the way that you do them. And that's why I'm really looking forward to getting into this podcast, The Man Who Calculated Death. I remember Long Lost Family, which was a TV show that Lisa hosted and produced. And I was in tears every week. I mean, and these stories so well told of these people searching for family members, et cetera. I have such mad respect for the work you do, and I know this is going to be great. I haven't gotten into it yet, and I'm really looking forward to getting into it. The Man Who Calculated Death. I hope this won't make me cry like Long Lost Family did, because I can't take much more in the way of tears.
It could be a necessary cry, Mark.
Okay,
there'll be times when you'll cry, there'll be times when you gasp, and there will be times when you're joyful. So
it sounds riveting more than anything. So The Man Who Calculated Death, get it where your podcasts take you. It's on Wondery Plus also as a podcast platform, but it's also across other platforms too. Hey, Lisa, congratulations. Really great to see you. Happy holidays.
Thank you, Mark.
Happy Man Who Calculated Death holidays.
Sure, should be a natural one.
All right. Lisa Joyner, everybody. Thanks, Lisa.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I think that sounds like quite a story. I'm kind of really anxious to get into it. We're traveling at the end of this week. I think that could be a good one to travel with. So, looking forward to The Man Who Calculated Death. Wow. Kim is hosting the show next week with, guess who? Michael Schur, everybody. Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Michael Schur will join Kim next week as I will be away. But I'm really looking forward to that.
It's not that I don't love you, but Michael Schur as a guest host, that's
he's great. Michael Schur is great. And he's brilliant on politics, brilliant on sports, brilliant in every other way, and he's funny and a great broadcaster. So he's just terrific, and it's an embarrassment of riches to have him with us. So I'm looking forward to that. There are a couple of things happening, some odds and ends I wanted to get to, but I also have Kim's news. So how do we do this, Kim? You're the brains of this operation.
Let's throw down some news and then move on.
All right. We're going to throw down some news,
Kim,
and then we're going to move on. I will mention again that if you'd like to have one of these beautiful Happy Non-Denominational Holiday T-shirts, they come in all of the designer colors of the non-denominational holidays. So I'm wearing red right now, but there's green, there's blue. And we also have a bunch of other T-shirts and merch. This is its first week online. By the way, there have been some interesting things that have happened with our merch store. You can see the stuff there. And there's even a chit, chit, chit mug, I believe. Tony, isn't there? A chit, chit, chit. And there's there's chit, chit, chit. Is there never been anything like this? It's coming, right? There's it's there. Yeah, there's never been anything like this. Yeah, that's right. If you want to have one of those mugs, you can have that. And we're getting that on a T-shirt. And we're also getting what was remarkably left out of our initial order. And when I play it for you, you'll go, oh my God, that was
What?
Yes, what was left out, but what will have its own mug and T-shirt soon. So, and of course, all the classic logo. We could try ignoring it, sir, is a very solid. I got to get that. Courtney, will you make that happen? I have to buy it exactly like everybody else. So I just got a bunch of things in, but I have to pay it for it exactly. And here's the thing that's funny, and then I'll let Kim do her news. By the way, this is what a great holiday gift, says teacher Lori. A week of Michael Schur and Kim McAllister. I know. I think
nice.
teacher Lori is a big supporter of the show, but I think down deep she doesn't like me. That's my sense of it.
I think she likes you.
You may not even have to get down deep to find it. But
it's the beauty of a teacher, though. You never really know how they feel about you.
It is so true. It's a beautiful. It's the beautiful thing about a lot of people in my life. I don't really know how they feel about me. But it is true that Michael Schur and Kim McAllister will be great next week. But so I'm checking out of the merch site the way I always do, and it says it's whatever it is, 45 pounds, like British sterling. And I'm thinking, what is that? And it turns out that on certain, is it on the mobile devices or how does it work?
I think it's on mobile through YouTube.
It's on mobile through YouTube, I see.
It's coming up as pounds.
It's coming up as pounds, but it doesn't, don't worry. It's the same money, but it's funny that it does that. So
I'm going to buy my Mark Thompson shirt in Cougarans.
There's a certain sophistication, if I can say that, to the fact that it's in British sterling. Yes, quite good. Good. So
we have processes and protocols and standards.
Yes, we have processes, protocols, and standards. So good stuff, everybody. I hope you'll enjoy the website, which is set up getmarkmerch.com, and have at it. You can also click through under the YouTube video, and you can find it that way. All right, Kim's news, and we continue with It's the Planet Stupid. Belinda comes by in a few minutes.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. The CEO of UnitedHealthcare is dead after a targeted shooting in New York City. As Mark mentioned earlier, police are conducting a manhunt after Brian Thompson was shot multiple times this morning while coming out of a hotel. The suspect was in a ski mask and fled on a bicycle. A report says he used a silencer. The NYPD says it was a brazen attack and that it was all planned. Detectives are interviewing Thompson's coworkers, and they're now reviewing video footage as well. Pete Hegseth says he will not withdraw himself from consideration for defense secretary. President-elect Trump's nominee is on Capitol Hill once again trying to meet with senators. The Wall Street Journal reported Trump is considering replacing Hegseth, possibly with Ron DeSantis of Florida. This comes as he is embroiled in multiple misconduct allegations. The report says Trump is mulling a few people as a replacement, again, including Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida. Meanwhile, I don't know if you saw this, Mark, Pete Hegseth's mom went on Fox and Friends. There was an email that she had written to him about, that was leaked, that was full of concerns about the way he treated women and that he was embarrassed, it was an embarrassment, and she was embarrassed of his behavior. And now she goes on Fox and Friends and she's talking about, please give him consideration, thanking Trump for believing in her son as she believes in him. I don't understand. This lady's all over the map.
Yeah, she is. I mean, it's always interesting to watch the charm offensive as a nominee bleeds out the way Pete Hegseth is bleeding out. I think that in general, look, this guy is utterly incompetent. I wouldn't have him organize a Christmas parade, much less organize the Pentagon and run the Department of Defense. And he's someone who was removed, and I won't get a big thing on this, but just the last 45 seconds, he was removed from a detail during the presidential inauguration because of his tattoos, in part, that are the same tattoos used by white supremacists. They're Christian nationalist tattoos. Again, when they looked into his background, there were also other disturbing things, but that was really the reason that he was removed from the detail. And you're going to say that the guy who couldn't even be on a presidential detail during an inauguration, they're going to run the entire U.S. military? It's crazy. I mean, go back to Fox and Friends on weekends with your happy talk and your BS and your making diet omelets or whatever the F you guys do on Fox and Friends, smearing Democrats, spitting on Biden, calling them the Biden crime family, stinking up Kamala Harris or whoever the next victim of your ridiculous propaganda is. Get out of government. You don't belong there.
I don't even know if they want him back on Fox and Friends. According to reporting I was reading last night, there are at least 10 former coworkers at Fox who are expressing concern about Hegseth showing up to work drunk, smelling, reeking of alcohol, him saying, "Oh, I'm still hungover." I don't know if that's the kind of, TV co-host you want. Yeah.
Wow. It could be
sayonara, sucker.
Oh my God. Could be sayonara.
The Hegseth party is over, but he does love America. It's right there on his jacket.
Yes, it's.
I mean,
you cannot say you love your country.
I don't know. He does have a lot of. I always feel this, like when you're all tatted up with "We the People" and you're standing in front of the American flag and you've got flags all around you and you're flag, "We the people, we the people, we the people." I think you're overcompensating for something else. Yeah. Like maybe you're not for the flag and for the people the way you say you are. There's just a little too much tattoo and flagging for my comfort.
Is he holding a flag in that shot, or is it a rifle?
Yeah, so he's supposed to, at least that's the way it's supposed to look, that he's holding. Yeah,
that he's holding the flag, yeah.
They're waving the flag, yes.
Yeah.
Never let it hit the ground.
South Korea lawmakers are calling for President Yoon Suk Yeol to be impeached following his martial law declaration yesterday. Yeol declared martial law in South Korea Tuesday, saying it was necessary to protect against threats posed by North Korea. He lifted the order about 6 hours later after it had been vetoed by parliament and protests started breaking out across the country. Yeol's decision took the United States by surprise, and opposition lawmakers are now calling for him to be impeached. So we'll see how this plays out. Governor Gavin Newsom here in California, pretty upset with the recent pardon of President Biden's son, Hunter. Governor Newsom says he understands a father's need to protect his family, but he took Biden at his word that he would not pardon his son and is disappointed that he did. On Sunday, President Biden announced the pardon, saying the charges brought against his son were politically motivated. So Newsom coming out against that. President-elect Trump is picking Peter Navarro as his top trade advisor. Trump is selecting Navarro to serve as his senior counselor for trade and manufacturing. He was previously Trump's top aide in his first term in the White House. Since then, he's served a 4-month sentence in federal prison after going against a congressional subpoena from the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th Capitol riot.
He's a smack talker. He is someone who is an election denier, of course. Mm-hmm. And he is someone who'll carry Trump's water all the way. So yet another Trump loyalist.
Now he's your new trade advisor.
And again, nice. I mean, I understand why you get people who are, loyal to you on some level. But I mean loyal, when I say loyalist, I mean loyal to the exclusion of all else, to the exclusion of doing illegality or being part of some illegality. That's what I mean when I say loyalist.
Going to prison for you, right?
Yes, yeah. Exactly. Thank you.
Serving 4 months for you. Seniors in America are paying more for health care than seniors in other wealthy countries, according to a new study. A Commonwealth Fund survey shows about 25% of American seniors spent at least $2,000 out of pocket on health care last year. Researchers say under 5% of seniors in France and the Netherlands spent at least $2,000. So big disparity there. Today, the Los Angeles City Council is expected to finalize the language of a sanctuary city ordinance and then adopt it. The ordinance would ban city resources and personnel from being used to help federal agencies enforce immigration laws. The City Council unanimously voting in favor of the proposed ordinance November 19th, but it had to make a few changes to the language, requiring a second vote. The City Council is also expected to approve the ordinance with an urgency clause. That means it would take effect within 10 days of being signed by Mayor Karen Bass. San Mateo County supervisors here in the Bay Area are taking more steps that could lead to the removal of the county sheriff from office. The Board of Supervisors yesterday approved an ordinance that calls for a special election where voters will be asked to approve a charter amendment that would allow supervisors to remove a sheriff from office under certain circumstances. The charter amendment, vote will take place next March. Sheriff Christina Corpus has so far declined multiple calls for her to resign over allegations of misconduct and abuse of power. She is denying those allegations, saying she's the victim of an old boys network trying to hang on to power in San Mateo County. This is an ongoing saga. Like Google, Meta wants to go nuclear to power its artificial intelligence efforts. The company behind Facebook and Instagram is accepting proposals from nuclear energy providers. Meta says it needs between 1 and 4 gigawatts of power to meet its United States needs. So going for the nukes. Tiger Woods is hoping to return to the course in 2025. He's not competed in an event since July and had another surgery on his back in September. He spoke at the Hero World Challenge, the tournament he hosts in the Bahamas, saying the procedure helped and he hopes he'll be physically stronger and better in 2025. And he said the fire still burns to compete.
The best video I've seen, of course, that made me laugh over the last week is a video, somewhere it's out there, of a guy who's a Tiger Woods lookalike. And he goes on he does look a lot like Tiger Woods, particularly when you dress him exactly like Tiger Woods. You put a hat on him, and then he has the golf shirt and all the guys. And he gets on he's on the course. I don't know where the course is, but everybody's looking, and there's like a crowd gathering, and he's not Tiger Woods. He's just a guy who looks like Tiger Woods, but he's really got all the walk of Tiger Woods. It's quite impressive how he does it. So he puts a golf ball down, and then, of course, he just shanks it into nowhere. You know what I mean? And then you see him he throws the club and starts cussing, and everybody who's gathered around is really shocked. And he takes another ball, he puts it on the tee, and he does that whole thing where he's kind of like, that practice swing thing that they all do, and he's sort of measuring everything, and then he swings at the ball and misses it completely. And then he throws the club and screams, and he throws the club, he just melts down. It's hilarious. And I think at that point, people begin to realize, oh, that's not really Tiger Woods. Yeah, but it was very, very funny. You should, if you can find it, it's worth a look. I think I might have seen it on TikTok. I can't remember exactly where, but anyway, go ahead.
I don't know if we have video of this, but some folks in Kentucky were pretty shaken up. No injuries reported after a large explosion that was apparently part of a gender reveal. Is another one of these explosive gender reveal situations.
Oh my God.
Residents called the Parker's Mill Fire Department last week after the explosion shook nearby homes. Firefighters had to be called out. They cleared the scene, and they posted on Facebook that the explosion site was very, very blue. So apparently there's going to be a new little boy.
Oh my God.
What can you tell us about the scene?
It's going to be a baby boy, Larry.
It's all blue.
What can you tell us about the scene?
All right.
Oh man. There is a new age gold rush as prospectors staking claims in California's Mojave Desert. Small-time gold hunters and multi-million-dollar speculators are flocking to this Randsburg area outside Johannesburg, California, to see if they can strike it rich. The area was once dotted with gold mines that have since been abandoned, but apparently they may soon come back to life. People are flocking there to get the gold.
Wow.
There it is. Yeah.
I don't know. Are you a gold hunter, Tony? I can't hear you. You're muted, but.
Good off-roading trails with my Jeep in
There you
Randsburg.
go.
Did it
You
a long
haven't seen
time ago. It
any
was
gold
good.
while
Good
you're
friends with that
off-roading
one.
there? No gold? You haven't seen?
Oh, no.
It's a gold hunt, Tony. You go for the off-roading, but
Yeah,
people are
but
going there to find
you have
gold.
to be careful out there driving because they say don't go off the trails because if you go off trail driving, you could just go through the ground, and if a mine, if a
of
shaft
course,
was
because there are
there.
gold mines there. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you got to stay on the trails out there though, but really cool.
Wow.
Some dude lit a car on fire when I was there last time.
Oh,
Just a
wow.
giant car on fire. It was crazy.
You need to bring a hat and a pan and get out there and a shovel and dig for gold, Tony.
Yeah, get that.
I'll just
find
go to
that
Knott's
gold.
Berry Farm.
That's right.
There.
Easier. Yeah.
Yeah, a new gold rush. What does that say about, the way Americans may feel that they, are struggling financially and willing to take on a gold rush lifestyle? That's hard
I mean,
work.
I don't know if things have changed. People have always been greedy that way. I don't know if that's a sign of the times. It might be. I don't know. It's definitely. I mean, I think these treasure hunts, gold hunts, whatever, have always been pretty hot.
This report is, look at that cavern. Yeah, I could see that you could just drop right down into a mine. This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Yesterday, my daughter went to a friend's house and the girls were making tea, talking about Coachella Valley tea. I thought that was kind of cute. Yeah, happy holidays from CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. They've got the holiday blend. They have the winter solstice tea. I have it. It is amazing and worth buying. So, ways to make the holidays warmer and brighter, whether it's gifts for giving or for yourself, that Coachella Valley holiday coffee and tea, amazing. And we've got a discount code.
Yes, we do. Mark T at checkout, and you'll get 10% off. And they're great supporters of the show, and we appreciate you supporting them, but mostly it's the best coffee you'll ever drink. The tea is amazing. I think the tea is extraordinary. Courtney is a tea drinker, and she is absolutely over the moon for it. And Kim is a massive tea drinker and just can't say enough great stuff about it. So
It's awesome. Yeah.
Now, and I'll say this too, because I see Randy in the expensive coffee, isn't it? It's a boutique roastery. So if you're looking for a discount coffee, you can definitely find it on the internet. Generally speaking, the situation with discount coffees is a simple one. Those beans have been sitting around for months, and they're looking to move them, and that's how you get them wildly discounted. So you can definitely get them discounted. But Coachella Valley Coffee, it is all the freshest crop, the newest crop. They are extremely specific and they're unyielding, I would say, in the demand for the product that they put in those bags. Everything is hand roasted. So when you're dealing with that kind of roastery, yeah, it's more than those discount beans. So that's exactly right.
Well,
That's why we give you the 10% off also. So
I would say that I'm spending less on my iced tea habit and my tea drinking habit by buying it from Coachella Valley and making it myself than going out and going to Starbucks or, wherever I can get an iced tea. I'm actually saving money. So
certainly it is true that they are exacting in the process, though. There's not child labor that is there's a kind of aspect of Coachella Valley coffee that's associated with things that involve a conscience to the way they do things. And for that reason, they're, again, another reason to support them. Everybody I've talked to, many of you have written to me and have been so very happy. So I'm glad. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Again, 10% off at checkout for your discount. And it's Mark T, the code for that discount. You'll enjoy it.
I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
This is Mark Thompson.
That's pure speculation. What's a little lie between friends?
Morning.
We're in better shape, but I don't think we're in wildly better shape.
Your Honor, I'd like to ask for a recess.
This is a word from the Lord, and he's not happy. Good day, sir. Seriously, what the
Why are you yelling?
All right, everybody. It is our Wednesday show. We've already heard from John Rothmann. We've talked about the situation in New York with the assassination of the CEO of UnitedHealthcare. We've also gotten into a wildly intriguing podcast discussion with Lisa Joyner earlier. We talked about the pardon and the discussion around, I'll just say, the possibility of Biden pardoning Donald Trump and the arguments that are being made for that. But and we had a long conversation with John Rothmann about that. So all of that is behind us. But we do have a terrific segment that I've been sitting on for a couple of days and because of other stuff we had on the show. And so without any further delay, let's do it. This is Stories from the Sky.
We have clearance, Clarence.
Roger, Roger. What's our vector, Victor?
Enough is enough! I have had it with these monkey-fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane! Everybody strap in!
The stowaway who flew from New York to Paris, apprehended in Paris, right? The Delta flight left from New York amid the Thanksgiving travel rush. This woman managed to get through airport security in New York without a boarding pass.
How does this even happen?
Exactly. I mean,
aren't there multiple spots where you have to show your boarding pass through security? You have to show your boarding pass to the agent letting you on the plane. How do you do this?
It really is.
I've never seen anything like it.
It really is extraordinary. And as Kim says, there are multiple checks. You wouldn't think it possible.
No.
But Delta Airlines Flight 264 departing New York's JFK, bound for Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris, the stowaway somehow going unnoticed at the time. The individual without a boarding pass completed security screening, including on-person and bags without any prohibited items, a TSA person said. The individual bypassed 2 identity verification and boarding status stations and boarded the aircraft. A passenger on the flight recalled how there was an onboard announcement when the plane was parked at a gate in Paris asking that everyone stay seated since the police would be boarding the aircraft. Quote, "We're just waiting for the police to come on board," the captain said. To keep everyone on the airplane is what they were told, until we sort out the extra passenger that's on the plane. So they kind of made the announcement. That has to be a rough moment when you know they're looking for you.
And then she didn't want to come home.
No. She actually began to create quite the disturbance. She was removed, but what happened was she was put on a return flight that would take off from Paris back to America. And isn't that where she raised a stink, Kim?
It looks like it. Tony's got video.
Tony's got the video up now. Thank you. Can we, is it not cool to listen to it? What can we do?
She caused a disturbance during boarding and was removed from the return flight, according to 2 law enforcement sources.
Please help me. I don't want to go to United States.
I don't want to go to
Please help me. United States broke my leg.
She was originally supposed to fly back to the U.S. today, but Delta refused to fly her.
Please help me.
The 57-year-old woman, who has a Russian passport, got past multiple security checkpoints at JFK in New York last week before she boarded the Paris-bound jet. Delta has not explained how she was able to get on the plane. The TSA and Delta are investigating the incident, and the woman is now scheduled to fly back to New York on a Delta flight on Wednesday.
We should have just left her there. She was not nice.
No, they will put her on a flight today. She's probably flying even as we're speaking.
Oh, man.
Please help me. I don't want to go to United States, she said. Oh.
We don't want you either.
I don't know. I mean, she seemed pretty clever to get by security that way.
John Rothmann says maybe she was preemptively fleeing the Trump regime.
Yeah, I don't know. That's right. I want to go, but now I don't want to go.
She's a Putin spy.
Apparently, somebody was saying, and they talked to various people on board the flight, I didn't actually see the person in question, said this guy who was on the flight. Apparently, she hid in a lavatory all the way at the rear of the aircraft when we departed JFK. Oh, that's great. It's like we never really knew how it happened. The first announcement to passengers that there was a problem was when we parked at the gate, and they instructed us all to remain seated because French police were going to board the aircraft to deal with a serious security issue. So, anyway, she's flying back to the U.S. today, and she'll probably have, at minimum, paperwork to fill out. I would think it might even be significantly more.
The Delta Airlines flight attendants are getting a memo before takeoff. You need to check all the lavatories.
Yeah, I would think that there would be a team meeting at minimum than the resolution. Meantime, on the other side of the airport, a passenger freakout leads to a lifetime ban from United Airlines. Check this out. Zip ties having to be used to restrain this guy in a violent outburst.
Oh, my.
United passenger, there you go. You're seeing it now. This guy is like kicking, and he's trying to just destroy the seat. What is he doing? He's
stomping
kicking
on the seat, stomping on the tray. I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's angry. He's angry elf.
He's kicking it down into the row behind him. There doesn't appear to be anybody seated in the row or the row behind him. Like, what are you kicking, dude? It's like, I thought it might be he was angry at the guy behind him, but there is nobody behind him. There were only 76 passengers on board this flight, as well as 5 crew members. It was L.A. bound from Austin, Texas. Anyway, got him a lifetime ban. And, I mean, that's not a good thing, a lifetime ban. And upon arrival at LAX, after a customer became disruptive, we thank our crew for helping address the situation and working to ensure the safety of everyone on board. We've banned this customer from future United flights.
Good day, sir.
That's right. And sayonara.
Sayonara,
yeah,
sucker.
Exactly, right.
And the people had to restrain him, right?
Yeah, with zip ties.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really extraordinary. I haven't, I've flown a bunch. I haven't really seen anything like that. Have you ever seen anybody really lose it?
No.
I'll tell you what the most extraordinary incident on board a flight happened not that long ago, just a couple of years ago. I was on a flight, New York to LA, and by coincidence, total coincidence, I mentioned this to you before, I think you may not remember the story, but my friend, who I knew really well, like my good friend I see all the time, happened to end up in the seat right next to me. I mean, it was extraordinary coincidence. The flight takes off, and about an hour in, that announcement comes on. Is there a doctor on board this flight?
Oh.
You're thinking, oh my God, something big's happening. And we see these people running back to the back of the plane where a guy is lying. I just looked out and I could see him lying on the floor. Apparently he'd had a heart attack or something.
Awful.
And we don't know what it was. I forget exactly what it was. I think they told me, but I forget. So there's running, urgent. About 10 minutes go by, and things have calmed down a bit, but still the flight attendants are, in a kind of hip to it mode. And my pal, as one of the guys, the flight attendants, walks back, reaches out to him and touches him on the shoulder across me. I was on the aisle. He was on the window. Reaches across to me, touches the guy on the shoulders. He goes, excuse me, when you get a chance, could I get another vodka on the rocks? I thought, wow, dude.
What?
Yeah, did you really just do that? These guys are trying to resuscitate some guy back there, and you're asking them if you can get another cocktail? And I said that to him. And he said, it looks like they have things under control. That's Stories from the Sky for today.
This has been Stories from the Sky. The captain has turned off the seatbelt sign, and you are now free to move about the cabin.
I've had
The Mark Thompson Show.
I've had the question, so let me just answer it now. I am on Blue Sky. We are on Blue Sky, the alternative to Twitter. And if you're on Blue Sky and you're going that way, please look us up. Again, we just jumped on, so I don't think there's much action yet. But it's the Mark Thompson Show. Okay, there it is. I have it on my screen. I don't know if you can, but
hard to see.
It's the mts.bsky.social. That's the post, right? That's the way they work there. The MTS. Okay, and follow us there. That's if you're into that kind of thing. You don't have to. Doesn't help us in any way if you do follow. But if you are following on social media, it is the MTS on Blue Sky. Thank you, Tony, for posting that, or Kim for posting that. I don't know which one of you posted it, but thank you. Thank you both. In fact, I'll give you a thank you. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. So why not? Now, quickly, before I go any further, let me, if I can, get into the chat. First of all, a false equivalency, says Pam, between the so-called crimes of Hunter and the very real crimes of Trump. This world is upside down. Let Trump pardon his own butt. Well, thank you, Pam, for that. And I think you're right. There is a false equivalency. I don't know if it's a... Yeah, I understand what you mean in the context of a false equivalency in this instance. So you're right. I mean, that if you're talking about a pardon, I mean, these aren't in any way comparable, and these situations are not comparable. One involves, again, the overthrow of the American government, the engineering of a coup, everything from fake electors to a violent riot. So I will grant you that that's a little bit different than what could be used to, you can use the Hunter thing to get to, it was a political persecution, if you will, and then this is where Trump comes in and says, yeah, I was politically persecuted too. Didn't you see my trial in New York, which was a political persecution, or the trial in Georgia? Now, the trial in Georgia, you may say, and I think you can make an argument like, hey, I don't know if I would have taken this guy into court in New York the way they did. That does feel as though it might have been politically motivated, or at least the political motivation might have tossed gas on it. But when it comes to the Georgia thing, I mean, dude, you tried to jack the election in Georgia. I mean, we have it on a recording. Then when it gets to the taking of documents from the government, I mean, not just a few documents, not just a handful of documents, not a box or two, so many boxes that there were literally carloads of boxes being taken back from Mar-a-Lago after there had been a letter demanding their return, and a letter, legally binding letter that said all of the documents were returned, when then there were tons of other boxes still in Mar-a-Lago being kept there, and you move them around to evade their return as they sent FBI agents in. And by the way, just speaking of the FBI, that's one of the reasons that Trump is down on the FBI. They stormed his, right.
What's the repercussion from that? None. As a matter of fact, we're going to give you access to all of America's secret documents again. Have at it.
Jack Carr says, what more heinous crime is there? Seriously, he's an insurrectionist. We don't pardon that. Thank you, Jack. That's, I think, agree. No pardon for traitors. No way, no how, says Betty. Trump will just pardon himself anyway, says Kristen. Jack says, I was removed from the voter roll without explanation, so it could have changed my vote in this election. This goes to the questions around what happened with this election. As you know, I feel as though there's a cloud of controversy at minimum around this, and I think it does deserve investigation. Sadly, I think that it may go uninvestigated, but that speaks to it. Jack Carr and others like Jack Carr have questions. I've gotten a lot of emails about just that sort of incident where they're following their vote and it never gets processed. All the people saying Trump's document scandal is the same as Biden's, make me irrationally angry. Yeah, I agree. I mean, the idea, like, well, Joe Biden had documents in his garage. What are you talking about? Yeah, dude, he didn't have garage filled with documents the way Donald Trump had bathroom filled with documents, ballroom with tons of documents, bedroom with tons of documents, closet of bedroom with tons of documents. I mean, come on. It's absurd. And these are sensitive security documents, military secrets. These agencies are not going to just step aside and let Donald Trump corrupt everything, says Robert Lewis. He's not, matter of fact, he's not going to be president. These agencies are not going to just step aside and let Donald Trump corrupt everything. He's not. In matter of fact, he's not going to be president.
I think he is.
Sadly, Robert, I hope you catch a paper or a newscast because, dude, he is. Sadly, I know what you're saying. I think I know what you're saying, or I don't know what you're saying, but I do know that Donald Trump will be president. So, patriotism when it comes to Pete Hegseth, yeah, patriotism is the last refuge of a scoundrel. That's a great quote from William Lundgren. I don't know where that quote comes from, but it's good. Patriotism is the last refuge of a scoundrel. Sounds like something should be said in a 1950s film. But I love it. I don't
Google
know.
it.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it is out there. You Google it. This is on Peter Navarro. Yeah, the Green Bay sweep, coup planner. Exactly right. And now he's going to run what? He's going to be a trade czar,
Advisor.
I believe. Yeah. So that's right. Quesadilla 79. You're exactly right. That was the world of Peter Navarro as we understand it. Yeah.
It's nuts.
It is crazy. It is crazy. On the evening of the 7th of April, 1775, the famous statement, patriotism is the last refuge of the scoundrel. God, William Lundgren, mad respect for you knowing that. The line was not, as is widely believed, about patriotism in general, but rather what Johnson saw as the false use of the term patriotism by William Pitt, William Pitt, who was the first Earl of Chatham, the Patriot minister. Wow. Good grab from Tony on that. I think that was...
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah. Indeed. William Lundgren, patriotism, the last refuge of a scoundrel. The beautiful quote appropriate for the... Pete Hegseth patriotism. He wraps himself in the flag almost literally. So, yeah.
I have another great quote.
What's that?
This one from Rahm Emanuel, who was, of course, a former advisor to President Obama, who's the current ambassador, I think, to Japan.
Yeah.
He said, and this is a quote, Donald Trump is going to turn the Oval Office into eBay. He's going to sell it to every special interest, and you are going to be left paying that tab.
I think that's true. I think Donald Trump is open for business. He cares about money, and he cares about ego, and we've stated it over and over. I don't know that there's anything that we can do, but he will be a pay-to-play administration, I think. And I'm just looking at it now. The party will have to stand in the way of the pharmaceutical industry getting everything they want and the American public paying everything you have. The party will have to stand in the way of children's mental health and online protections and TikTok. The Oval Office will become eBay, and whoever pays the highest price will get what they want, and you'll be left paying through the nose. He thinks that the party's messaging, this is interesting, just in talking about what the election went down to and, what influenced the election. He said that the party's messaging should have been centered more around the gains it made for American people and less on democracy and the rule of law. That's what I said. Now, I didn't say the first part. I said you need to talk about issues that matter to people. You know what they are because of polling. Democracy, sadly, doesn't matter to people. I mean, it's not that it doesn't matter. It's that it doesn't motivate them to vote.
Which is crazy to me. I mean, what's more important?
Yeah, I mean, well, what's more important? Putting food on my family's table. Yeah, I mean, that's what's more important. But what's happening with this administration incoming with the appointment of Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, as I mentioned at the top of this show, to me, you're seeing the oligarchy in full form taking control of the American government. And I felt that Donald Trump could have been very much the subject of that conversation. Look at who he has around him. That's what I would have done a little bit more of if I'd been Kamala Harris. Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk. Vivek Ramaswamy is a fast-talking, very smart guy who did a pump and dump scheme with a pharmaceutical company. You understand what Vivek Ramaswamy did. Vivek Ramaswamy licensed essentially a bad drug and then rejiggered the research to make it look like it was a passable drug, and then did the pump and dump scheme with the stock. So it became recommended and it ran up, and then he dumped it. And now it's virtually worthless. That's who Vivek Ramaswamy is. And he is a billionaire, legit, when another jillionaire who is inhabiting the Donald Trump administration. And by the way, there's no problem. I've got nothing against rich people. We all want to be rich people. But I would say, we all, you know what I'm saying? I mean, there's nothing wrong with wanting to do well. But I think to the exclusion of the American people and those who are just trying to be happy in America with making a modest living and, having the basic freedoms of Americans, I think it's very dangerous to have these people involved in what are essentially money grabs. And so you have Vivek Ramaswamy, who I just described to you, and Elon Musk, who shed Twitter of all of the moderators and anything that had to do with making it a neutral platform. This is after all the free speech, and I'm going to make it a place where it's safe for both sides to speak, and neither side is going to be suppressed. And he changed the algorithm so it just became all about Trump, and it became a boost for Trump, and then he embraced Trump. So again, hey, you can embrace Trump and you can be a jillionaire. But what I'm suggesting is when you turn these type people loose on government, they have no sense of propriety. They have no sense of governance. They have no sense of fairness, of equality. To them, all of government looks like a waste. And government is big, and some of it is wasteful. A lot of the Pentagon is wasteful, and defense spending is wasteful. I doubt they'll go after that. Maybe they will. But I'd suggest to you, they don't get, it's not a business. America and the American government and the government spending is associated with a lot of things that have nothing to do with making a profit. We lose money on a lot of things to support our populace. We pay taxes, and we are part of the American governance system in a way so as all Americans can share in the prosperity of America. It's not about always being in the black. A lot of the American government, as you've well seen demonstrated, runs in the red. So this idea somehow that you can just go after government spending with a machete, I don't think it is a blunt force object type situation. You have to be very tactical about it all. Not to mention there are any number of ways in which it's going to be slowed down. Musk, Vivek are going to be slowed down by the courts and by a lot of systems within government that just sort of check their ability to just run rampant. But I see them as destructive forces more than, look at their backgrounds. I just see them as destructive forces. And again, people who are used to slashing huge numbers of employees off of workforces aren't necessarily going to find that that's the simple way to cut back on government spending. Again, legitimately, there is waste in the U.S. government. There is waste in all governments. But you have to be tactical about the way you approach it. And $2 trillion, which is what they're talking about cutting, that's utter lunacy. These are people who are just full of bluster and rhetoric. And sadly, the American public believes it. So can we slow them down for 4 years is the question. That's a great question. Look, if you want to slash government, you're going to have to get consensus of legislators who are there to pass legislation. You're going to have to get their support. You're going to have to get buy-in from even a GOP that may have questions about slashing big parts of government. If you're going to go after Medicare, you're going to get political blowback. It's not a popular position. Again, you may come with your wish list of cuts, but you'll need buy-in from all those legislators. So that's just the reality. And I think that Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk, among others, have some rude awakening ahead of them.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I will say that Donald Trump, though, I think there are a lot of ways in which he can enrich himself and likely will with this configuration. So I see it as an opportunity for Donald Trump to do well. Hey, I want to mention again, we have our holiday meetup coming up, and it is on December 21st. It's a Saturday, 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock in the East. Special guests will roll through the spirit of the holidays. Sign up at our PayPal. You'll give us a $50 donation if you could. It's a fundraiser for the show, of course, and you'll lock up a spot that way. And when you do, note meetup with your donation. So $50 donation and note meetup. And then RSVP, drop us an email saying, hey, I did this. Here's my $50 donation. I did it already. mtsmeetup@gmail.com. mtsmeetup@gmail.com. Saturday, December 21st, 5 o'clock on the West Coast, 8 o'clock on the East Coast. And I think that Tony will be there. A lot of people want to see Tony. They want to be around Tony. And Tony will be there. Yeah.
I'll be there, but lies.
Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Kim will be there.
Kim, how are you?
We're going to try to line up some of your regulars, your favorites. John Rothmann announced that he would be there. And there'll be other special guests who have never before appeared on a meetup. So this is our special holiday meetup. No Belinda today because of apparently she had a cell phone issue. That's the reason. So thank you for asking, Randy, but no. And what else did was there anything? I'm going to make sure that I didn't miss anything else. If I did, I promise I'll get it tomorrow. Thank you for all your support today. And tomorrow, the great David Katz joins us, and we'll talk about the legalities.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show.
The legalities of it all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. The after party live with Kim McAllister going down now. Until tomorrow. Bye-bye.